And we welcome you into America's Forum for this Tuesday. I'm J.D. Hayward.
And I'm John Bachman. Great to be with you, J.D., and everybody at home. Let's get straight over to today's top headlines right now. The search for missing Malaysia Flight 370 continues today, and it now appears some of that speculation about the pilots has been thwarted. Could the plane have flown to Pakistan, a Taliban-controlled area? We'll take a closer look at that. An exclusive new report we heard J.D. talking about with our news partners over at Lignet.com.
Meantime, Vladimir Putin has now signed a document to make the annexation of Crimea, quote, official, at least in his eyes. This as the Russian president and his ilk shrug off the latest round of sanctions. Vice President Biden and President Obama heading to Poland this week to shore things up with our NATO allies. Will it do anything to halt Putin? That will be the focus of our discussion with foreign policy expert Paul Gregory coming up.
And also, Mitt Romney is out with a new op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. The former presidential nominee says President Obama's failure to act has diminished the global respect for the United States in the wake of the Ukrainian crisis. And joining us right now here on the set to discuss today's top issues, J.D. Hayworth and political analyst Dick Morris. Dick, we were looking at the situation in Ukraine. Putin now officially making the annexation of Crimea official in his eyes, at least. Where do we go from here?
There are three steps we ought to take. One, put the missiles in Poland and the Czech Republic that Obama pulled out in the first couple of months of his presidency, that canceled plans to deploy. Secondly, pass legislation lifting the administrative bureaucracy on exporting natural gas. And finally, complete construction of the 27 planned liquefaction facilities to transform gas into a liquid. Once it's in a liquid, you put it on a tanker and you send it anywhere in the world. Russia's power in Europe is not military. It's based on the fact that they provide Europe with a quarter of the natural gas and Eastern Europe with half of it. If the United States made good on a threat to begin to sell gas to Europe, it would break Russian power and put Putin out of business.
All right, we'll have more on the president and vice president's visit to Europe coming up here later in the show, but let's get to the top story, J.D.
And it deals with politics. Has the GOP found its own pajama boy? The party's just released a new round of ads featuring a young man named Scott Greenberg.
You can't help the unemployed by hurting the people that could employ them. I'm a Republican because my friends need a paycheck, not an empty promise.
Well, J.D., we might be seeing a lot of Scott this election year. The GOP is using him, his leather jacket, his bold-rimmed glasses, and his pretty cool haircut there to try and find new voters. But will it work? And doesn't Scott kind of look a little bit familiar?
What I was talking about at the outset of the program, Pajama Boy, the Democrats' poster boy from Christmas break. Well, you see him side by side right along with our new friend Scott. Is the latest Republican effort to court hipsters and people other than old white dudes like me really going to work? Dick Morris, you have had an interesting career as a political consultant on both sides of the aisle. This approach by the Republicans to say, look, we're hip, we're young, is it going to work?
It's stupid. First of all, gas prices are going down. The other ad is about gas prices. And it doesn't rank in the top 5 or 6 of worries of young people. The issues that do work, Obamacare and the NSA, they're not touching. Secondly, it is a myth to believe that the Republican Party is in trouble with white young people. Among the millennial generation, 18 to 33, the whites in that generation were just as strongly for Romney as the whites over 33. The reason that Obama carried the millennials by a very large margin is that 43% of them are non-white compared to about 28% of the general population. It's a racial issue, ethnic issue, not an age issue.
And it seems like, Dick, if the GOP really wanted to court younger voters right now, that they would focus on the topic that we all know is the #1 topic, not just on millennials' minds, but also on everyone in America's mind right now, that being jobs and the economy. Why doesn't the GOP talk more about what it's doing to create jobs for these young people? I know they try to do that in this ad, but it doesn't really come across.
Well, I think that would be very effective, but I think far more effective would be for somebody to say, this is my new car. I need it to get to work. It's not new, it's secondhand, it's third-hand, I paid for it, blah, blah, blah. But I bought it rather than get that stupid health insurance Obama wants me to buy.
So in
might
other
work
words,
as well.
real world needs, and it seems like whether it's the pajama boy for the Dems or Scott for the Republicans, this notion of identification of other rather than deal with the issue.
Or take Obama's quote. You have to choose between get rid of your credit card, your cell phones, and your cable TV, and instead buy health insurance, and have somebody talk about how I need my cell phone for work, or get rid of cable TV. Is he kidding? I use that every day. I won't use the health insurance in my lifetime, you know, in the next 10 years. Take aim at his vulnerability, which is Obamacare being a tax on young people to subsidize everybody else, and hit young people in their area of vulnerability, their pocketbook. Instead, to talk about vaguely about jobs or about gas prices is ridiculous.
Yeah, and another problem that this might create for the GOP and the RNC and millennials is because millennials don't really buy into this notion that institutions are going to come through for younger generations. We've seen many institutions that a lot of these millennials had a lot of faith in before kind of crumble. We saw this with the banking scandal, the government bailouts, the mortgage crisis. So this generation doesn't have a lot of faith in institutions like the Republican Party. Wouldn't it be better to talk to them on a more one-on-one basis with a candidate, a younger candidate, like Aaron Schork out of Illinois or Tom Cotton out of Oklahoma, and say, hey, this is what we're trying to do for our generation or your generation?
That's true. You're selling a generation that is opposed to institutions on believing in an institution. Just won't work. But above all, this is the first time the millennial generation has been in play politically, not just because some pollster puts them in play, but because they are being asked to subsidize this entire healthcare system. The whole thing is balanced on their backs. What an opportunity to reach them and talk to them about it, and the Republican committee is blowing that.
Well, you've obviously outlined what we instinctively saw as a big problem, but having been a consultant, dealing with a variety of campaigns on both sides of the aisle, what happens with consultants and focus groups to come up with something that is so obviously lame to the world at large?
Yeah. Oh, God knows. There's turf wars, there's manipulation of the research, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I could keep you up all day with horror stories about that.
But if you had to pick two primary motivating factors that may have led to the advent of Scott and a Republican pajama boy, if you will, what would they be?
Well, it's old white men like you and me fantasizing about what would work and attracting millennials.
Well, I mean, you know, part of the problem, I think, is that, you know, and you hear this when you talk to young people, and I talked to a lot of them at CPAC last year about what would really work to court more Republican voters, more of their classmates who don't currently vote Republican. They say just be sincere and honest with the generation. Don't try to talk to them. It's not easy to get somebody to follow your footsteps when you're trying to be like that person you're trying to have follow you here. So just be honest with them. Embrace the Rob Portmans of the world, the John Kasichs of the world who have crossover appeal. Maybe not Chris Christie right now, but it's there, and these kids, young people, younger than 33, still are looking for leadership.
Don't talk to them about us. Talk to them about them. Don't talk about how great we are. Talk about how hard it is for you to afford all the things you need, and on top of it, now you're being forced to pay for Obamacare. Use that issue to win them. Party identification only follows after you go along with the party on issues. It's like the decision to marry only happens after you fall in love. And it has to be driven by issues. And the issue that will connect with them at this point is the burden that's being put on them by Obama.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Ari Fleischer has to say about this, guys, when we come back, because we're going to get to him on the other side of this upcoming commercial break. We'll ask him, is the GOP's new game plan, has it been a home run so far, and what's he thinking about the upcoming midterm elections? We'll speak with Ari Fleischer, a former advisor to President George W. Bush, his press secretary at one point, on the plan, the growth and opportunity plan started by the GOP exactly 1 year ago. How is it doing today? That when we come right back. And, of course, we want to get you to weigh in and the participation and to participate in the discussion, I'm meaning to say there. We want to hear from you. Reach out to us on social media at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum, on email, connect@newsmaxtv.com, or find us on Facebook, facebook.com/America's TV. Dick Morris, Ari Fleischer, J.D. Hayworth back with me right after this.